All right. So how did you get started in the management field?
I started as a meat cutter, and then I became an assistant meat manager. And then once you're already a manager somewhere, everybody else realizes you're a manager. And so all you got to do is do it one time
Okay.
to get into it.
So how long have you been a manager?
For 20 years.
How did you begin working at this company specifically?
I actually, for this place, I answered a reply. I replied to an ad in Craigslist, and that's how I got here. They used Craigslist, and that's it.
Okay. So what previous jobs have you held?
Oh, gosh. Before this, I was the shipping and receiving manager for an offset printing company. Before that, I managed a. Gosh, I'm trying to think which order it was. I managed a fresh market meat market, a Harris Teeter seafood market, and a Bilo produce market before that.
Okay. So how would you say that sports aid in this company's production?
Oh boy, well, it's definitely profitable because we do YMCA's, we do all of the high school sports teams, we do stuff for state, we do stuff for, gosh, what else do we do? I would say it has a huge impact because college athletics, even though it's not athletic wear, it's all sports related, right? So that's the reason, like Austin Station, all those jobs. So I would say sometimes it becomes half of the company.
Okay, so what sports items would you say that you specialize in?
Jerseys, that's what we do for YMCA. So we do jerseys for them, and then we do shorts, sweatpants, all the athletic needs of like high schools and middle schools.
Okay, so what would you say the easiest part of management is?
This right here. No. I'd say the easiest part of it for me is creating a schedule, because I just naturally able to do that from seeing the work and being here so long that I can piece everything together and make the schedule. It's the easiest thing for me.
And what about the hardest part?
People.
Okay.
People are always the hardest part of management.
So how would you deal with difficult employees?
That's a tough one. So, for me personally, I believe that every person is different, and despite a set of standard rules that people have to follow, sometimes you might have to bend the rules a little bit for people for their needs. But if you become a problem, then you're not bending over for anybody because now you've become a problem. I'm not trying to help you get through a troubled time in your life. You're just a problem now. So then that's where here we instituted a write-up policy, 4 write-ups and you're gone.
Okay.
And so 4 write-ups also eliminates your ability to receive unemployment. So first is a verbal discussion, and then after that you have 3 write-ups and your 4th write-up's out the door. So really you have 5 warnings, and so that's really the best way to deal with troublesome people.
Okay, so on the flip side, how do you deal with disagreements from supervisors?
Well, let's just make a fake scenario. So if in my department and I have a problem with a purchasing supervisor, then normally I would try to talk it out with them, and if I can't talk it out as one manager to the other, then we'll have to both go to the next level, which here, unfortunately, there's just an owner. So once it's me, then it's them. So if we had a problem somewhere else, we go straight to the owner.
Okay, so how do you effectively give employees constructive criticism?
That again is a tough one, right? Because you don't want to, if somebody's doing a good job but they're just not getting something, you don't want to come across as they're not doing a good job. But they're just not comprehending something, right? So you want to reinforce what the procedure is, explain to them what they're doing wrong with that without berating them, and that's the best way to do that.
So how would you say that this company is uniquely associated with sports, like outside sports programs?
Well, due to the fact that Richard and Norwood both went to NC State, we're definitely very connected because of the Wolfpack Club, and even though that's not athletics, like we said before, it's because of athletics, right? So the Wolfpack Club, super connected to us, and the Wolfpack Club wouldn't send anything to anybody else because we have such a great integral relationship. But then when you get to the schools and things like that, That's more catch as catch can. Like if somebody started at the Sanderson High School who didn't have a good discussion with the person who had the job before them before, they might take the shirt somewhere else.
Okay.
So you constantly have to be going back with those people to make sure that you get the work, because you're not going to get it if you don't keep in contact. I don't know if that really answered that question very well or not.
No, I have that for sure. Can you give me an estimate of maybe how many sports programs that the company works with?
So we discussed YMCA, and you could say, well, there's under YMCA, there's all of those. So you'd say that we do not only the camp stuff that's not sports related and the stuff that's sports related. Yeah, I mean, you're going to end up with probably, I would say, at least 50 companies that we do sports related things for.
And you said that probably maybe sometimes it's about 50%
of the business, yeah, because if you put in the Y Guides jobs in there, and then you got the Wolfpack Club in there, and you have, like, you weren't here, but this time of year, last year, when Carolina won, we printed 10,000 Carolina shirts in a day, then the next day we did 9,000 Carolina shirts, and the next day 5,000 Carolina shirts. So, like that right there, that's a huge amount of shirts just in a weekend, which would normally be about a week's production on a regular time. So during championship season, it can become the whole egg while you're working, because you can't do anything else till you finish that.
Have you ever had any issues with stealing employees?
The closest thing that I would say that we had to stealing, and this could go both ways, is we had a person here who was printing on the manual press, and they were supposed to have 3 toddler shirts. And I was doing shipping and receiving then, as well as everything else that I do, because we hadn't hired Phil yet. And I was out that day. But I had counted the shirts in a few days before. So the guy who was running the manual press screwed one of those shirts up, right? Well, then he was so scared that he messed a shirt up that he wouldn't tell anybody. So he just took the shirt and hid it, which is basically the same as stealing, right? So the customer shows up, Norwood comes to the customer. Customer goes, oh, let me see those baby shirts. Oh, there's supposed to be 3 of them. There's only 2 in here. Well, Norwood knows that I would not write 3 on the box if there weren't 3 in the box. And so he starts looking for it. Well, that guy lied to him, and then by the time he saw Norwood crawling in the dumpster looking for that other shirt, he fessed up that that's what he did. Yeah, so it wasn't really stealing, but lying and hiding damaged goods is pretty close to it.
Okay, so last question. How often would you say customers complain, and how do you deal with those complaints?
All right, so I would say that we have a pretty good track record around here, and we did have a job that was printed about 3 or 4 months ago that came back because the placement was wrong. So if it's something 100% wrong like that on our side, we are totally going to replace it and make it right for the customer. But if it was something that they didn't do right, because they have a responsibility too, then we might have to work something out, 60-40 or something like that, or them cover the cost of the original goods. Because if we sent them a proof and it was their mistake because they approved something that was not right, well, we can't eat the loss for that. So most of the time we're going to do everything we can to make it right without affecting the customer. But if it is something that they had a part in, well, without being dirty, you have to eat the pie too.
Gotcha. All right, well, that's it. Thank you.
Goodbye, America.